to Graw from Occupy Wall Street.
So bright. Hello? Oh. Can you all hear me? Hello? It's a little intimidating to be sitting up here alone. Does anyone want to sit next to me? Any volunteers? All right. There we go. This is supposed to be a decentralized movement. Leaderless. All right, so I'm here to kind of give some background on how we started the Occupy Wall Street 99% movement. But the biggest reason why I wanted to come out here is because it's starting to get really cold in New York. We had snow one day, and I lived for years a couple blocks away from Zuccotti Park, Liberty Park, and the wind down there gets so brutal. We're definitely going to stick it through the winter, and we're going to keep fighting. But we need people in LA, in the warmer climate areas, to really pick up the ball and step it up and to get us through these next couple of months. So I'm primarily here to try and inspire you people. Not that you need any inspiration. You know, in a lot of ways, you guys have a much better operation here, a much more organized operation here, even if you might not feel that way, than we do in New York. So I'm very impressed by what I've seen in the first, 2-3 hours I've been here. So primarily, please, thank you all, and, pick it up through the winter. We're really relying on you guys here. And a lot of us from New York will be coming out in the next few months. So now, what I've been invited here to speak about is my history within the movement. And, I can't stress it enough that obviously, probably most of you here never even heard of me, have no idea who I am. And this movement has been built on hundreds of thousands of people now taking it upon themselves to fight back against what I consider, their own personal financial oppression. And there's been so many organizations involved for so long. I get very hesitant in talking about my whole history because really we're in this situation because everyone's been screwed over economically, and that's why we're here. End of story. So that being said, now I've dedicated the past 3 years of my life to two things. One is investigating and reporting on the economic crisis. The other is organizing people to protest against global financial elite, the banks. 2 years ago, I wrote an investigative report called The Economic Elite versus the People of the United States. In the report, I called for 99% of the population to unite on common ground to fight global financial interests. And in the book, I put forward a lot of economic statistics that I discovered through research. One of those key statistics was the richest 400 Americans have as much wealth as 154 million Americans combined, which is half the U.S. population. And the report at first got a lot of pickup because of that statistic. But what grew out of that was the 99% movement. So I basically did a whole bunch of international interviews. Interestingly, U.S. television media didn't want anything to do with me. But through the international interviews, I was able to build this 99% movement. And as we were building it, our website kept getting attacked and knocked offline, and some members of Anonymous came forward and helped us out. And then, if it wasn't for these members of Anonymous, the 99% movement would have been dead a year and a half ago. So much respect to anyone who's ever done anything with Anonymous. So we did this collaborative effort called A99, and they called for protests on June 14th. And one of the goals of the protest was to occupy Zuccotti Park, or Liberty Park. And on the same day, we had protests in 23 different cities. We had a Move for Money day as well. But all in all, we were very frustrated and depressed because we didn't get much of a turnout. We had amazing buzz online, but the actual physical turnout of the protests was pretty weak. We only had 14 people who showed up at Zuccotti Park on June 14th, so it was pretty depressing. But as fate would have it, that same day on June 14th, there was protests a couple blocks away against Mayor Bloomberg's budget cuts. So when we left Zuccotti Park, some of us met up with these Bloombergville people, and we started working together towards what would be a protest against Wall Street. This confluence of interests became known as the New York City General Assembly. So as we started organizing for our return to Liberty Park and the occupation of Wall Street, Adbusters, of course, put out their amazing call to action. And we all rallied under that to be the date. There was a lot of debate on, whether we should do it on a Saturday because no one's down in the financial district on a Saturday. The first time we tried to occupy the park was on a Tuesday, but we heard that everyone was working on Tuesday, so Tuesday wouldn't work. So we went with the Adbusters call, and there was also a lot of debate about not having demands because Adbusters framed it as, what are your demands? And we had very specific demands in the past. That, by the way, the 99% movement, we had thousands of people online give their opinions on what our demands should be. And now these demands are completely separate from the Occupy Wall Street movement because, the 99% movement has evolved so much further than we could ever imagine. So everything we've done before, even though 2 years of hard work went into it, we kind of just threw that aside now because it's obviously a much bigger thing now. But what we did was, after hearing requests from thousands of people online, we kept coming down to two things. One was getting money out of politics. We called it the system of political bribery, which is campaign finance, lobbying, and the revolving door between Washington and Wall Street. So that was one of the demands. Another demand was breaking up the banks. If you guys remember, about a year ago when we had the so-called Senate economic reform bill, there was an amendment put forward. It was a Brown-Kaufman amendment, and it was to break up the banks. And we had supported that amendment, but unfortunately, it didn't make it through Senate, not surprisingly. So breaking up the banks, getting money out of politics was our focus. And on the June 14th event at Zuccotti Park, there was a need. We felt that we needed to have our own Mubarak of sorts, because we also helped organize protests throughout Europe and throughout Egypt and Northern Africa. From an online perspective, we helped set up social networks for these groups to interact with each other in a way that the government couldn't watch them. So we were always looking at this in a global perspective. And one of the extensive reports we wrote, the global decentralized rebellion against neoliberal economic domination. That, by the way, is the first report where we called for the occupation of Liberty Park. So we had this global perspective, and we felt that we needed our own Mubarak to represent the global economy. So we figured there was no better figurehead for that than Ben Bernanke, the Federal Reserve Chairman. So we demanded his resignation. Obviously, that was a failed demand. But, we're still working on it, and we're getting more people involved, obviously. So as Adbusters framed it this time around, what is your demand? There was a lot of internal debate about these demands. So we reluctantly said, okay, what is your demand? We have no demands. And we thought that was a mistake, but it turned out that that was actually brilliant. Not having demands gave everyone their own voice, and it really resonated, because even though a lot of us who've been working on this issue for years, we feel that we know what needs to be done. But there's a lot of people who have been struggling financially, going through their own personal financial hardships that aren't as necessarily interested in the issues we are. So in presenting what's your demand, everyone got their own demand. And, people keep asking us every single day, when are you guys going to issue demands? And the fact that everyone in the media, politicians, everyone within the group is trying to figure out what our demands should be. We have this amazing real political discourse that's happening in this country for the first time in years. So, is Dennis around? So yeah, it was brilliant that we didn't have any demands. It's probably one of the big things that helped propel this movement as far as it has gone. Also, the first time, the June 14th event, we really had great online effort put forward. Got a lot of buzz online, but we didn't have people on the ground doing the old-fashioned grassroots community organizing. And a lot of the groups in the Bloombergville and, a lot of the groups that became the New York City General Assembly, they had, boots on the ground. They were in the communities. They were in the college campuses. And that married with the online buzz is what ultimately made the September 17th as successful as it was. And I also think it's really important to mention that, even that day, September 17th, when it came to occupying the park for the first night, there was only about 200-300 of us, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. But a key element was the global revolution, the indie media live stream. The fact that they were live streaming every second of that, people kept going online and seeing it, and they felt like they were there, and they knew about it, and they could see like, oh, well, maybe there's not enough people to make this happen, but there are a lot of people there, so let's get down there. So the Indie Media Global Revolution live stream played such a key role in making it successful over the long run. And it's been an amazing ride. My personal life has turned into a circus. But we wanted this to happen 3 years ago. And the fact that it wasn't happening was incredibly depressing. We were very depressed after the June 14th event. Even though things were successful offline, it was pretty sad. So we were happy that it finally happened, but we were shocked that when it finally happened, it blew up the way it did. And, this is totally decentralized, this movement. It is totally leaderless. It's, as people who've been taking part here probably already know, it's a very humbling process when it's a decentralized, leaderless movement. You're dealing with people who really do have opinions across the political spectrum. That's not something we just say. It's real, and you guys probably see it here. You have libertarians and progressives and Ron Paul supporters and Ralph Nader supporters and socialists, communists, anarchists. Really, 99% of the population has been screwed economically. And what we need to do is find how we can unite to defeat these global financial interests. So I don't want to keep going on. If people have questions, they want to jump in.
Yeah, if you have a question, come on up here.